Hello students, this video is going to explain to you how to create frequency tables using the function COUNTIF. And from the frequency, we're going to create a relative frequency table. So I have my raw data that represents the number of arrivals at Wendy's, and I want to create a frequency table from that. To create the frequency table, I noticed that my range of data is not that big. I can see that the minimum is 1 and the maximum is 11. But to make sure, I'm going to calculate the minimum and maximum. So I wrote the word minimum here just to remind myself that the number in front of it is going to be the minimum. To calculate the minimum, you're going to use the function min. So every time you're going to use a function, make sure that you put the equal sign in front of it. And I'm going to type in min. And a number of functions are going to pop up for me. My function is the first one, so I will double click on it. And then the function is going to ask me about numbers. So I'm going to select all of my numbers and click enter. Similarly, I'm going to find the maximum of those numbers just to make sure that my range of data is not huge and I don't need classes. So again, I'm going to use the function max and double click on it and then highlight my data and click enter. So for sure, my minimum is 1 and my maximum is 11. I take this information and I list all of my numbers from 1 to 11 here. Now, this range is not a big range, so I don't need to create classes. As you can see, I made a table right here. I put for the classes or the criteria, I put the number of customers, and that ranges from 0 to 11. And then I will calculate the frequency of each observation. So if one customer arrived, I'm going to calculate how many times that happened. To do that, I'm going to use the function COUNTIF. And again, to use a function, you're going to use the equal sign before it and then COUNTIF. You don't have to type in the entire thing. If you just type in count, then a number of functions going to pop up for you. Make sure you use COUNTIF because I only have one criteria right here to count. So I'm going to double click on the function. It's going to ask me about a range, as you can see there. So my range is going to be my raw data. And remember, this raw data is not going to go anywhere. It's not moving anywhere. So I need to lock that range of data. And then the function tells me to put a comma. So I'm going to put a comma. And then it asks me about a criteria. And that is, what am I counting out of these data? So I'm going to tell that function to count how many ones are there in this data set. So I'm going to click on number 1. And since I want to use the function and I want to copy it down, I want that cell to move down as well. So I'm not going to lock that cell. And click enter. As you can see, I only see one customer arrived at Wendy's, just happened one time. So to populate my table or to copy my formula down, I go to the cell that I put the formula in. And if you notice here, in the bottom right corner of the cell, there is a green box. So I'm going to put my cursor on there. When the cursor changes its shape to a black plus sign, I double click. And that way, the formula is going to automatically be copied to the next cell and the next cell and etc. And it will create a frequency table for me. So if you click on the second cell, it shows you that it used the same range because we locked it, but the criteria was number 2 because it moved down. So Excel understood to move the criteria down to count how many 2s are there in my set of data. So this is how you're going to create a frequency table. Now I will show you how to create a relative frequency table. So again, I'm going to create another table here. So all I have to do is just copy this column right here, which is Control C. And then I will go there and I will say Control V. So I copied the first column. The next column, I'm going to call it relative frequency. So the relative frequency is basically the frequency divided by the total number of frequencies. So that means before I start creating my relative frequency table, I will need to find the total number of frequencies. I'm going to calculate how many total frequencies are there in this box right here. and I will use the AutoSum function. I'm going to click on this blank cell to put the sum of the frequencies here. You can click anywhere, but I will put it right here just to remind myself that number is the total number of frequencies. And then I'm going to use the AutoSum. And because I use the cell that is under my column, it is understanding that it's going to add all of the numbers in that column. But if you're going to use any other cell, you have to type in the function sum on your own. So I have 40 observations. I'm going to use that number to create the relative frequencies. So the relative frequency is basically the frequency. So I'm going to click on the first group frequency. And since that number is going to move down as I copy the formula down, I'm not going to lock that number. And then divided by the total number of frequencies. I could type in 40, or I can click on this cell, but this cell is not going to move anywhere, so I will lock it. And then I will go ahead and copy the formula down. So as you can see, the relative frequencies are basically calculated automatically from the original table using the formula of the relative frequency, which is the frequency itself divided by the total number of frequencies. I hope this video helped you, and I will see you in a different one.